Okay, so when you're first starting to draw, it can be really confusing to know what lines to put where. So you're going to draw an outline where you're tracing the edges, and then you're also going to draw, lines indicating some of the details to the inside of the bag or whatever it is that you're drawing. This is a particularly difficult assignment. I mean, you'll see this assignment in high schools and colleges across the country. Drawing, either crumpled up paper or paper bags or, anything like that, because there's so much subtle wrinkle to it. So you're going to have to make some decisions about how much detail you really want to outline. If you detail everything, you might drive yourself absolutely crazy, especially your first time out. And that's why there's a right-brained activity. I mean, your mind, you have to leave some gaps. You're not going to be able to connect every dot. So when I'm first sketching, you notice that my hand is backed up off the end of the pencil. And I'm using sketch lines, but you can also use solid or singular lines if you want. This is an intuitive process, but getting the basic outlines and the opening to the top of the bag, and then the outline on some of the heavier wrinkles or some of the heavier shaded spots is probably all you need. Okay, the rest of it is all shading, and you'll notice that at this point I'm starting to shade, and I'm using more of the side of the pencil, and all I'm doing is adding lead to it, essentially, like looking for the slightly darker areas, and I'm putting some lead down, and I'm doing this with the 3B pencil. I did the tracing with the HB, and then this is the 3B, and the 3B is a softer lead that is going to dull quicker, but it's going to come out darker. Okay, it peels off the pencil faster. And these shaded spots or areas, I'm just doing what's called hatching or cross hatching, where I'm not shading them in perfectly. I will show you how to shade perfectly smooth later, just using the pressure of your pencil. We have plenty of exercises where we're going to learn to do some pretty intense shading. But for the beginning, all I'm doing is kind of squinting my eyes. That helps throw my pupils out of focus, and laying down just kind of rough areas where I see it darker or lighter. Okay. And then after that, I'm going to start to use a blender stub. That blender stub is that rolled up newspaper bit, and I'm getting in there and I'm smoothly letting that shade out. Don't overuse the blending stub. That's something a lot of people do. They get going with that blending stub, and then they try to blend everything smooth. You want to leave some areas rough. I would say that I over blended this piece. That's just a common mistake. The next part of this, I'm going to get in here with the eraser. And, after I'm done with this blender, I'm going to get in with the eraser, which is the kneaded eraser, and I'm going to start lifting areas. I'm not going to use it like a typical eraser where I'm, scrub it necessarily. Sometimes I'm just going to dab it, and it's going to lift the lead up off the drawing. And that's going to help me put in my highlights. So the process is usually, you're too light at first, and then you add some darkness, and then it gets a little too dark, and then you erase the light spots. And then the very last thing that I do is I'll go back in and I'll add the darker spots again. And you may do that process, 3 or 4 times. Darken it up, lighten it up, darken it up, lighten it up. That's a normal shading process. It's all right. Again, this is a lot. Remember that this is just a starting point for you. We're going to come back and we're going to look at this, later, like try again, see what you've learned. It takes, thousands of three point, free throw shots before you start really being consistent, right? Don't expect anything more from the eye-hand coordinated event of drawing. It's going to take you some time, and that's okay. So here's my finished product. Give it a try. Even simple things can be awesome with good shading.